Yeah, so I've been making wine for just about a decade now. Um, in my first 7 years, I was a head winemaker at another location or a different winery for that matter. And, it got to that point where it was, all right, do I go to the West Coast or do I try to start something here on the East Coast? And, I love Pennsylvania. I grew up here in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, born in York, Pennsylvania. So Pennsylvania my whole life besides traveling.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to do is really help our industry here in Pennsylvania grow. And the way that I see that is by keeping talented wine people here. And then also creating and fostering a world of education for our consumers, but also for people that want to be part of this industry in Pennsylvania.
Welcome to YMI Talking, a podcast where the guests are so good, you'll wonder why the host is even talking. In each episode, you will hear one of the leaders of the Lehigh Valley's vibrant business hub. They will tell you the keys to their success, the mistakes they've made, and what they have in store for the future. Here is the host of YMI Talking, from YMI Insurance, Jimmy Honachik.
All right, that is me. I'm Jimmy Honachik, and I am super pumped for the episode today. If you know me, I enjoy alcoholic beverages, and in particularly wine. My wife and I, we honeymooned in France, and I didn't care for wine before that. And I came back a convert. So I am super excited. We have Matt Check this week. He is the owner, the sommelier, the wine man at Cellar Beast Winehouse out of Andreas, and they have a location in Easton. And I can't wait. So Matt, thank you for coming on. Let's dive into this.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jimmy. It's gonna be fun. I'm happy to share everything you want to know.
I got a lot I want to know, so we'll see how
All
this
right.
goes. Let's start with Cellar Beast Winehouse. Tell me about it. I believe it's fairly new. How did it come to being?
Yeah, so I've been making wine for just about a decade now. Um, in my first 7 years, I was a head winemaker at another location or a different winery for that matter. And, it got to that point where it was, all right, do I go to the West Coast or do I try to start something here on the East Coast? And, I love Pennsylvania. I grew up here in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, born in York, Pennsylvania. So Pennsylvania my whole life besides traveling.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to do is really help our industry here in Pennsylvania grow. And the way that I see that is by keeping talented wine people here. And then also creating and fostering a world of education for our consumers, but also for people that want to be part of this industry in Pennsylvania. So that's kind of part of what Cellar Beast is when we thought this up was to be a little bit different than the other wineries in Pennsylvania in the way of taking more of an educational focus rather than succumbing to what the industry has done, which has been a lot of sweet wine, a lot of churn and burn style. Now for us, it's all about the contact with the consumer and having that moment to share good information about the wine, educate them when they're willing to learn, of course, and try to change some minds and build some wine brain power for our consumers here in Pennsylvania. So that's
That
pretty much what Cellar Beast is: high quality wine with a very approachable front and an educational focus.
so you said the industry does sort of the sweet wines. When you say that, you're referring to Pennsylvania wineries in general, right? Not the greater wine industry.
Yeah, mostly. I mean, honestly, you could call that an East Coast problem. Whenever you have a new, I say a problem like it's a bad thing. I mean, everything starts somewhere. Think about even the
Mhm.
wine industry out west 70 years ago. It all started with Pink Zinfandel, really. So it all started in a
Yeah.
place where it was much more immature, and then it grows. So I definitely don't take anything away from the sweet wine producers. They found their niche and they know what they're doing with that, and that's great. But what I want to see is our industry here in Pennsylvania evolve, because really we have the ability to grow grapes here. It's about doing the right things to get to that point, and showcase the wine from there. Now, there is plenty of wineries here in Pennsylvania that do focus on dry wine production. It's just everybody needs to push each other to the next level, but also work with each other at the same time.
I'm gonna go off script here from what I wanted to do. Talk to me
Sure.
about the industry, especially the Pennsylvania wineries. Is it a
Mhm.
collaborative group? Like, are you guys working together? Whether it's Folino and Vinecrest and you guys, do you guys all communicate and try to push each other like that?
So I've actually been doing a lot of reach out, trying to get people to be more collaborative.
Yeah.
it seems that there's certain places that just have their walls up and don't want to play. But then there's other ones that are, I mean, I already work with. That whether it's I'm bringing in barrels and they need to bring in barrels, we work together and we bring them in together, just, make
Yeah.
the shipping costs cheaper. But we love sitting down with each other and tasting wines and talking about what we did that made this wine that much better, or if they're having a problem with something, or if I'm having a problem with something. And I reach out to the other winemakers that are, of friendly correlation. So there's definitely a portion of it that, we are collaborative and we do want to work together. Then there's other ones that it's just hard to break down that wall and get to their softer inside, I suppose.
We see that in our industry, and I don't want to take too much time, but where
Sure.
there is a collaborative group and we come together and you share sort of the knowledge, and there's a greater knowledge when you come together than if you were all to kind of stay in your island. And so I can only imagine if there was that wine community within Pennsylvania, that it would benefit all.
Well, yeah, I mean, we have just in this general area, call it like 30 wineries within about a half hour drive here. Um, and what's going to help this region grow even more is getting all of us on the same page, getting more wineries here, making it more of a tourist destination. Because the more people you can get in your area to come visit you, the more they're going to go visit the other ones that are right next to you too. So we can all kind of pool together, even go after marketing together, and really bring more people out, make it more of a tourist destination, which at the end of the day is going to be more money for everyone's business. And I mean, that's the goal, I guess, right? We all want to make money doing the thing that we love. So
Yeah.
it only makes sense to be collaborative in every aspect possible in our little industry here in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. So the thing that you love is a certain style. So tell me about the style of Cellar Beast and where the
Yeah.
inspiration comes from.
So my style is, and what I should say, my whole winemaking team, we're all big French wine buffs. Everything that we do is basically, we like Sauvignon Blanc from the Loire Valley. So that's the style of Sauvignon Blanc that we produce. Or we like Chardonnay, like Chessonnier, Montrachet, and Burgundy. So we try to produce that style by using the best quality fruit that we can get our hands on. So in a nutshell, we are, French focused in style. And then beyond that, it's minimal intervention, really, because when you source great fruit, you really don't have to do a whole heck of a lot to it to have a good
Hmm.
product. So we kind of view ourselves more as ushers rather than mad scientists, because when you have good fruit, all I have to do is not screw it up in the meantime. And I just have to take it from point A to point B, and we're usually cooking with some good gravy at that point. So.
And to that point, are you guys growing your own grapes? Tell me about your grapes, where you source them from, how you guys do it.
So for our sourcing right now, for all of our wines, we're about 90, call it 95%, 98%, depending on the year, from the West Coast. Now, from the
Hmm.
West Coast itself, call it about 85% of all the fruit that we bring in there from the West is Washington State. We do dabble a little bit in Oregon as well, and then a touch in California too. But Washington is definitely way ahead above everybody, in my opinion, now that climate change has really changed things.
Oh,
It's
wow.
gotten really warm in California, which has definitely impacted the grapes to a pretty severe level, and then mixing the fires with that too.
Yeah.
So we try to avoid those sorts of things, but I just love the fruit in Washington State, and you're
Are
really
Pinot
starting to
Noirs
find
big
out.
up there in Washington?
Not so much. There is a
Okay.
little niche being carved out in the Lake Chelan area, which is
Okay.
most northwest portion of Columbia Valley. You're starting to see production there, but it is a very small AVA at this point. So hoping to see some more stuff out of there. Now we've been sourcing our Pinot Noir. This past year it was Santa Maria Valley, California, and the previous year it was Willamette Valley, Oregon. The reason we had to pivot to Santa Maria was because last year Willamette got a real deep freeze early in the season, knocked out
Hmm.
about a third of their production, and us being a little guy, we lost that contract.
Yeah.
So we're hoping to get back into it this year.
I'm sure. So you guys, to the point of being a little guy, I mean, you guys have been in existence for 2 years now, right?
Yes.
Tell me, how do you get the confidence to start your own winery? I think of everything sort of through a business framework, and wine doesn't happen overnight, right?
Sure.
There's a lot of upfront investment. So what does that look like, and how do you not be terrified to do that?
Well, it's nice to have a business partner behind you that is willing to be the money guy for you. I just brought the talent to the table, so it was definitely good. I mean, I very short time that I've known my business partner before we opened up this place together. Maybe like 6 months we knew each other. But we had a couple of meetings early on, and it just was like, well, this works. He's business guy, sit behind the spreadsheet, loves that stuff. And then I had him taste a couple of my wines. He's like, yes, let's do this. So, I mean, I guess the proof is in the pudding, as they say. When the
Hmm.
wine's good, it's much easier to sell it. So, I sold it to them, and now we're selling it to everybody that we can. So
Yeah.
I've had the confidence there. From the winemaking side, I know we're going to be fine. As long as we're sourcing the fruit that we're sourcing and we're doing the things right in our production room, we'll be fine. It's just going to be about figuring out the market, which we're dabbling into a couple of different realms now because we haven't pushed a whole lot commercially, but we're about to make a pretty big commercial push here. We did a bit more production last year with the idea of having a commercial leg. And then also we're starting an in-home party thing too. So like think like somebody
Like,
hosts a party at their house with our wines. Think like Pampered Chef or something like that, but with wine.
yeah.
So we're going to be doing those now too.
When are you starting that? Just asking for a friend.
We're hoping in the next month to have it all squared away. We just started finishing off our marketing materials for it, and we just hired another lady about a month ago as well. That's
Wow.
going to head up that program for us.
Well, I will be emailing you about that for sure.
Please do, please do. It's kind of funny how much we've just lightly introduced this idea to people.
Yeah.
We probably have a half a dozen people that are already signed up for parties, and we're not
Get
even ready
out.
to do it yet.
You bring up a point. My wife and I were just sitting around deciding that we're going to start a winery one day.
Nice.
And what we talked about, and that's, it's a pipe dream, but she's very analytical, and she's would be good at growing the grapes, we decided. But there's this whole
Okay.
other portion, which is the marketing and distribution part. Like that's how the
Right.
bottles get sold ultimately.
Yeah.
What is your guys' sort of strategy as you go into that? Because that is as almost important as the alchemy and the blending of the grapes.
Yeah. So, day one, what we were really focused on was getting the people here, getting them in the seats, getting them to understand what we are. Because the best sale for a winery is the direct to consumer sale. Your highest profit margin is there.
Mhm.
So that's why, we get people here. We don't have to go anywhere. We don't have to drive anywhere. There's no shipping. There's nothing. They come here. They get to have the full experience of Cellar Beast, which again, part of our educational focus is instead of having just here's your flight, it's a guided tasting that you do here. So you actually sit down at a table and get table service as opposed to being bellied up to a bar, getting a couple samples and bouncing out. So we really put a lot of extra effort into that customer contact with the direct to consumer. Now, as we move past, just focusing on sales here, and we've been growing. I mean, we've been pushing the growth about 40% in 2 years each year. So
Wow.
it's been going pretty nuts for us. And
Yeah.
what we need to do now is, of course, we have a lot of other items that I want to buy for production. So I'd like to increase the sales even more. So that's why we're going to be pushing into our commercial leg now. And then, of course, any other little tiny program like the in-home party program. So those are going to be a little bit more unique because then you're going to have the wrinkles of commission structures and
Hmm.
all the extra tracking that comes along with it, which all I see is that there's a few more hours in front of the computer for me.
Yeah.
So
Which you can
either
give to your
way,
business partner.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Oh yeah,
Uh-huh. In terms of the direct to consumer and bringing people in, you guys
yeah.
do a lot when it comes to events and bringing in different vendors. Talk about who you kind of look for to attract to that sort of thing.
So we're always looking for good music. Obviously budget friendly music at the same time. We do like to get people that we can rely on to have a decent little following of their own,
Hmm.
but also that are going to fit our location too. Because at the end of the day, like if we're doing music in wintertime and it's inside, we can't have anybody that's too loud. We need to be more, it's kind of good background music in a way so that we can still do our guided tastings and,
Yeah.
actually talk to people. So that, and one of the big thing, I don't know if I say if it's unfortunate or if it is fortunate, is everybody loves to hear that you have a food truck. They are the
Yeah.
absolute bane of our existence because they're impossible to schedule and rely on.
Yeah.
But we have a handful now that have become really good, consistent food vendors for us, and that's been absolutely huge.
Yeah, yeah. Talk about the accolades that you guys have gotten. So, right, you're 2 years in, and
Mhm.
you're already doing well on sort of the award circuit. Tell me what's going on there.
So we just got our most recent awards, and what that was the Sunset Magazine International Wine Competition in Sonoma, and three of our wines were in that competition: the Dark Angel, the Grand Melange, and then also our Midnight Archer. So Midnight Archer took silver, Grand Melange took bronze, then Dark Angel, which is my passion project. I've been making that one since 2014, actually,
Wow.
and that bad boy double gold, best in
Wow.
class,
What
and
does double gold
97
mean?
points. Double gold means that you scored over 95 points.
Oh, gotcha.
And
Okay.
yeah, so then when they pick best in class, it's because you got the highest points in your whole class. So I was in the other Bordeaux variety class, and we got best in class for that double gold. And out of 100 points, we scored 97 points on that wine. So
Wow.
not too shabby. It was pretty
Yeah. Tell me about that
good.
wine. What makes it so special?
So this is really the epiphany wine for me, if you will. So back when I went through the wine school of Philadelphia for my sommelier training, I think every person that's truly in love with wine has a couple moments where they just smell a wine and it's just like, holy crap, wine can be
Yeah.
this good, and you just have this moment of like your brain explodes almost. And that wine for me was a wine called Purple Angel from the Montez producers down in Colchagua Valley, Chile. And
I'm writing this down for myself.
definitely a great wine. It's even more fun to taste it side by side with mine. But
Yeah.
that was the wine. That was the wine that was just like, holy shit, what is this? I need to make this. I need to be a winemaker. Like it took me from wanting to be on the service end of
Wow.
wine to I need to make wine. And as soon as I started making wine back, was it 2014? I was an assistant, and then 15 was my first year as a head winemaker. And from there, it was just gangbusters. They had Carmenere, they had Petit Verdot, which are the two grapes in that blend. And in 2014, I got my first medal with it, first vintage. It was a silver medal. And
Get
then
out.
after that, I forget, I think it was another silver, 15. And then 16, it got double gold for the first time. And then the
Wow.
17 and 18 went gold and gold again. So we're back to double gold, which is nice. But yeah, so it's always going to be a Carmenere focused wine. This particular batch was 6 barrels, 1 barrel new French oak. We aged it for 16 months in those barrels. The final blend resulted as 94% Carmenere and 6% Petit Verdot. Now, Carmenere, just a beautiful grape. If you like peppery wines, that's what
Hmm.
Carmenere is. It is the most peppery of all red varieties. It gives you like you're slicing into a poblano pepper. You can smell the zest of the pepper and then a little bit of dusty white pepper there. And then we inject that Petit Verdot in there just to give it a little bit more dark fruit structure, a little bit more tannic rigidity on the mid palate. And then it's silky smooth finish. And if it's, I always say this to people in our tasting room, if it's the last thing you taste before you leave, you'll be tasting it for the next 30 minutes because it has that good of stay power. And it's just a
Wow.
beautiful thing that echoes in your palate.
All right. So you've convinced me. Where do I go and get these bottles? How can I get it?
So both of our locations are the easiest ways to get them right now. I will actually have this wine up on our website shortly for sale as well. So it's the
Oh,
fun
so
part
can
of
people go to the
direct
website
consumer.
and buy wine?
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, we
And
work
you
with a
said
third
both
party vendor
locations.
for
So,
that. Yep, both
okay.
locations carry all of our products. Yep.
And so there's the Andreas. And then talk to us about the Easton one. That was kind of your second
Yeah.
location, and that's in downtown, right?
Yeah, right in downtown. So if you're standing in the circle facing the Free Bridge, all you have to do is go about call it a half a block down on your left, and we're a
Wow.
nice little place tucked in there. That's like the same side as Bayou there. But yeah, it's a beautiful little spot, and we have about 35 seats in there, so it is tiny, but it's definitely more intimate. And of course, the best part about it is that you're surrounded by all those wonderful restaurants, so you can
It's
really make a good night of it.
It's insane. I've told this story probably on the podcast, but when my wife and I were moving to the area, I said, I grew up, I know Allentown. There's a lot to do there. Bethlehem's a beautiful downtown. There's so much going on there. I was like, we're not going to live in Easton. Like, I remember Easton. We're not going to go there. And then we went out to lunch at what you said at Bayou. And I was like, what happened here? It's unbelievable to see the change that has happened in Easton. And it's got to
Yeah,
feel cool to be
it's
a
exciting.
part of that. Like you guys are there making it.
Well, yeah, and actually, the part of Northampton Street that we're on is probably the most undeveloped right now. But
Hmm.
there's a huge change happening right there. Right at the end, complete construction, new hotel with a bunch of storefronts. It's going to have a rooftop restaurant on it too. We just had another restaurant move in down the road from us too. So this is like the final phase, I think, of the Easton downtown project in a way. So
Yeah.
it's exciting to see even more stuff happening there, and it's definitely made the whole Easton area more intriguing, more fun. And I mean, one of my favorite restaurants down there is Third and Ferry Fish Market. They carry
Yes.
our Albarino and our Dark Angel. So oh man, if you like oysters, place
Yeah.
is fantastic. They usually have, I'd say, at least 8 different types of oysters from all over the eastern seaboard, and it's just an awesome, chill place. Great food, and yeah, I mean, I can't say enough about it. I always try to find reasons to go knock out a couple more dozen oysters. So,
What other restaurants carry your wines in the area?
so Bolit has our wines as well.
Okay.
Um, and then McCall's, both of their locations, McCall's Brew Collective or Beer Collective, they
Yep.
have both their Hamilton and Susquehanna locations have us. Seven Sirens Brewing has our wine as well.
Okay.
We're in Randall's over in Orfield,
Yep.
and then Brick House in Orwigsburg, which is up this way by the Andrews location.
Oh, very cool. You mentioned Bolit, and I saw something on your website that I wanted to bring up. I
Sure.
saw the term sustainably crafted, and I
Mhm.
know that Bolit is sort of big in the sustainable and local. So, talk to me about your philosophy around that.
So I really do not like to use chemicals. I mean, we already get enough chemicals from everything else that we ingest. I don't think we need to put it in our
Yeah.
wine either. And really, you don't need to with wine. Wine is a living organism in that regard. The more that you throw chemicals in it, the more you dull the experience, in my opinion. So, really, like I said, it's all about that sourcing of good fruit. If you do that, you don't really have to do much else. And you know, it's tricky for certain places, or especially if you're growing your fruit here in Pennsylvania, you do have to rely a little bit more on science and chemicals, just because it isn't the best place to grow grapes, and I understand that. So for us, it's all about if you have good fruit, then why mess it up with adding chemicals into it? So that's
Yeah.
part of our sustainability pledge, and just trying to make sure that we're making the best creation we can without, you know, having to use science to change what it is, letting it be what it wants to be on its own.
Yeah. So, you grew up in Bethlehem, you know the
Mhm.
area, and then you go to sommelier school. You've created this gold, double gold wine. How do you choose Pennsylvania to settle down in? What made you choose this area, this region?
I love Pennsylvania. That's the
Yeah.
first and foremost there. I mean, I've always loved this place. I love being up in the mountains here. Um, Both sides of my family all were from, either the Poconos or down into Bethlehem. Both my grandpops worked at Bethlehem Steel. My one grandma, her family had a farm up in Stroudsburg, Tannersville area. So I spent a lot of time there as a kid, and I think that's what made me fall in love with the mountains. And yet another reason that I love our home location here, because we're right on the north side of the Blue Mountain Range here, so it's quite
Hmm.
pretty, especially during summertime with those beautiful sunsets. But um, I love Pennsylvania, so that's why I stayed here. But really, a big focus behind that is, it came to a point in my career where it was like, do I stay here in Pennsylvania, continue to make wine here, which, from an end of getting paid as well, I could definitely go out west and get paid decently well to be
Right.
a winemaker out there. Here, it's a bit more of a struggle. I kind of alluded to it before, where it's, we need to keep the more talented people here in Pennsylvania to help
Yep.
grow this region. So that was my idea. It's stay here, help this place grow this industry, because I love Pennsylvania and I want to make it better. Make it better for our consumers, grow the industry, bring more of a focus on what Pennsylvania can do. Even though I'm sourcing fruit from the West Coast for pretty much all of my wines, it still shows that we have the capability to make great wine outside of those states. And eventually, I'll get my vineyard here up and running, and we'll make some badass wine from Pennsylvania grapes too.
That's great. Yeah. To one point you made, I had Jen Mann on recently, and we were having the same conversation. I think 15, 20 years ago, the talent left. She was talking about going to her high school reunion, and there were lawyers and doctors, but they all had to travel in because they didn't stay in the area. But I feel like, and tell me, you're kind of a shining example of this. People are choosing this area now. They're coming to this area when they have other options, and it's turning into what we want it to be.
Yeah. I mean, I think we can thank COVID for a little bit of that. Everybody running away from cities.
Yeah.
I also can thank that whole everybody coming back here for making our housing economy here in the valley very stressful.
Yes.
Trying to find a home right now is a nightmare. So, but I think what we're seeing is that the growth is happening here. Obviously, our local governments are behind it as well and trying to
Mm.
induce it. You're actually seeing that even up here towards Andrews, like Tamaqua, of all places, has crazy programs right now that are trying to attract businesses in. So
Hmm.
I think it's a whole Eastern Pennsylvania thing that is really starting to see this extra growth. Of course, with the exodus of people leaving cities, has definitely pushed that. But we have that potential here. I mean, and we have had that potential. I mean, I remember my whole life, like always talking about the next new thing that's happening in Bethlehem or over in Allentown when they got the PPL center. So it feels like we've always been on this bubble in the valley of like,
Yeah.
when are we going to go to that next level of greatness? And I think hopefully we're sitting right on the edge of that bubble right now.
That's a great way of putting it. So we're running out of time. I got two things I want to do. Is there
Sure.
anything else you wanted to talk about before we go into these?
I guess one thing I really wanted to do is plug something that you might be interested in.
Let me hear it.
So we have a program here called our Private Reserve Program.
Oh, I saw it.
Um,
I saw it. I was going to ask you about it offline.
Well, either way, I like to plug this one just because it's one of our coolest things that we do is offering people to make their own wine here. Whether you just want to have one personally for yourself, one for your business, one for your restaurant, you can pick your variety. You can be here when we crush and press. You can get dirty with us if you want to. You can also taste it as it ages in its barrel. And then at the end, we do a little blending session so that you can fine tune your wine. And then we bottle it up and put your own custom label on it for you. So you can do it from a quarter barrel, which is 70 bottles, up to a full barrel, which is 280 bottles. Um, and yeah, kind of have at it. So it's a lot of fun process. It's really cool to see the evolution of your own wine. Even cooler to put your own label on and take it home, though.
That's very cool. So we'll get a why am I drinking right now bottle out there.
Absolutely.
Very cool. So two things. The one is, as we were doing our research, I had my intern, looking into this, doing some research, and she
Sure.
came across your logo,
Yeah.
and she pointed out to me that it's a Capricorn goat, and she went into all of this. I had no idea. I was blown away. It's got a fish tail because they go deep, and it's got the head of a goat because it's got emotional. It pushes through. So how did you come up with this? How does it relate to your wines? Why did you choose the Capricorn goat?
Um, so I definitely have to put my hat off to my girlfriend. She's the one that really came up with this idea. And the way that I like to explain it, the way that I like to think about it is that basically you're taking all these different facets and people that work with me here at this place. We all have our own different piece to do it, but when you put us together, it turns into this magical beast. And we have a little story behind why we picked Cellar Beast, though, too, is we all started in at the bottom of the wine industry and the production end, which means you're what they call a cellar rat. So now that we have our own
Oh,
place and we're doing things our own way, we're the Cellar Beast. So
yeah.
really, the other idea though behind that logo is think about all the other Pennsylvania wineries that you've run into. How many labels do you remember?
Yeah. That's a good call.
So definitely a direct marketing approach there. It's we wanted something to stand out, something cool, something different, and beyond that, it's just about some magical beast that's all of our skill sets coming together to make the Cellar Beast.
That's great. All right. So the last thing, we do this. Our one of our sponsors is Notch Modern Kitchen and Bar, and I don't know if
Heck
you've
yeah,
been there, but they do
yes,
this
I
really
have.
cool thing where you can pick an alcohol and like a mood, and
Okay,
then they put something together for you.
okay, I
Um,
like that.
and so you can't choose your own wines, but it's the end of a week,
Okay.
and you're sitting down to enjoy a beverage. What are you, Matt Check, picking?
So I drink wine so damn often that you'll probably find me with a nice IPA in my hand. I'm not gonna lie. But if I was drinking a wine, um, especially summertime, I'd be drinking a Sancerre, so a Loire Valley Sancerre Sauv Blanc. They're just
Yeah.
my favorite whites. Fresh, zesty, good for a summer day. That's usually where I'm at.
Well, I'm convinced. It is 5 o'clock somewhere. This has
Absolutely.
been this has been great. I really appreciate you coming on. I have learned about wine. I've learned about you guys, and we will definitely be talking about this reserve.
Heck yeah, man.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the YMI Talking podcast. If you enjoyed this and want to hear more content from amazing personalities in the Valley, please subscribe, leave a rating, and drop us a quick review.